How much impact and influence does your tech have on your life? The other day I just mentioned to my wife Louise that we should think about getting a water softener fitted, and almost immediately I had a bunch of ads pop up on my social feeds for water softener companies. Now how lovely and helpful is that? There's someone out there who is really interested in me. They trawl through my internet history and they listen in on my conversations. They show far more interest in the things that I'm interested in than the rest of my family. Of course, this isn't done by a person. It's an algorithm that's been programmed to keep an eye on our online habits and then push relevant content out to us. It seems personal because it is. It's aimed at our personal interests and our habits. Have you ever paused to think about how much of your life is run by an algorithm? How much of what you consume is placed there by an algorithm? A piece of coding that's trying to get your attention at best and trying to manipulate you to do what it wants you to do at worst. Now, a few weeks back, I saw an advert for a golf putting tool. It's a ball marker that you put down and you move to line up your putt. You also get a tool to mark lines on your ball. Now, I didn't know these things existed. I'd played golf for years, blissfully unaware that I needed this thing. But now I know about it, and I know I need it. And guess what? It's on a limited special offer that will expire in a few days. If I don't get it now, it will go up in price. Now, I'm guessing that if you don't play golf, this advert hasn't popped up on your timeline. There is some algorithm somewhere that's collected my data and my search history and figured out that it could drive a sale if it placed the ad on my feed. Now, of course, I saw straight through it. I knew what the evil machine was trying to do, and I wouldn't fall for it. But I really needed it, and that putting tool is so cool. Look how cool it is. Anyway, we're wrapping up a series called iRobot. It's all about how we can stay human when a device runs our life. The big idea behind this series is that what has our attention shapes our perception. Our tech is all about trying to get and hold our attention. And you might be sitting there thinking to yourself, well, I'm fine with this. I'm low tech. I don't even play Snake on my phone. The only tablet I have is for my blood pressure, and TikTok is the sound that my watch makes. What has all this got to do with me? Well, the focus of this series isn't actually tech. It's about highlighting what gets our attention, and is that thing worthy of our attention? Our phones and our gadgets are built with this goal, but even the most unplugged of us still have things that are competing for our attention. And whatever has our attention defines our perception. Now, we're not anti-tech. I love gadgets and I love technology, but I do recognise the power and control that it can have on our lives. Our goal in this series is to help us take back control, to put our tech in its rightful place. We pulled together some ideas and suggestions to help you do this. It's our top 10 tips to tame your tech. Head over to fbcnext.com/tech to take a look. Now, you know the phrase, you are what you eat. This is true for more than food. The things we focus on influence us, and often more than we're aware. Whatever you consume has the potential of consuming you. Things without an internet connection do this too. Are you aware of how whatever has your attention is impacting how you see yourself and the world around you? Are you aware of how it's influencing you and changing your attitudes, your actions, and even your beliefs? We carry these devices around with us that are designed to cater for our every whim. They worship us. They bring the world to our fingertips. I can ask Siri, Alexa, or Google any question and they'll answer. I can issue commands like turn off the lights, send a message, or schedule a meeting in my diary, and they'll do it. And I don't even have to say please or thank you. Our devices exist to serve us. They are there to make our lives easier. They are there to help us connect with each other. They're there to do whatever we want them to do. But are they? Or do they? If we brought someone from the past into our time, someone from the pre-internet era, and we placed them in a public place and asked them to observe what was going on, what would they see and what would they say? Now, almost everywhere they looked, they'd see people walking around looking at these little shiny rectangles instead of where they were going. They would see people focused on their devices rather than the people around them. And if they looked closer, They would see people doing what their devices told them to do, not their devices doing what they were told to do. I imagine they would think that the Earth had been invaded by some sort of alien intelligence that creates a symbiotic bond with its host, through which it controls and manipulates it to do its every bidding. It's invasion of the body snatchers 2.0. So perhaps we need to take a step back and ask ourselves this question. Who is controlling who? Who's in charge? Who's in the driving seat? Our tech is created for us, but looking on from the outside, it could easily seem it's the other way round. Does it ever feel that your tech is taking control? Is your phone the first thing you reach for when you're waiting for someone? Do you take your phone into the bathroom with you? Do you feel naked or that you've lost a limb if you leave the house without it? Perhaps you're aware of the hold that your tech has on you. Perhaps you've even tried to put things in place to get that control back, but it wasn't as easy as you thought it would be. Now let's take a step back and look to some ancient wisdom that I think has a lot to say to us in our battle to take back control from our tech. Lots of the letters we find in the New Testament were written by a guy called Paul. Now, Paul never owned a smartphone. He'd probably think the internet is something to do with fishing. But Paul did know a lot about the internal battle for control that we all face. He often describes this eternal battle as a battle of the spirit and the flesh, or the sinful nature. The language might seem a bit strange to us, but when we understand what Paul means by it, we begin to see the wisdom and the truth in it. Paul's premise is what or who we listen to defines our actions. Our flesh or our sinful nature is that part of us that's focused on us. It's the part of us that wants to say yes to the things we know we should say no to. Our flesh makes us think that we're the center of the universe, that life is all about us. Now, of course, we would never say that out loud, but if we're really honest with ourselves, we know that we think it, and sometimes our actions prove it. When Paul talks about the Spirit, he's talking about God. Now, if you're new to this faith thing or just landed on this video, I know this bit sounds a bit weird. Paul's experience is the same as countless followers of Jesus throughout history. Somehow, God places his Spirit within us to help us and encourage us and to guide us. Whoever we are, whatever we believe or don't believe, we know that we do things because we listen to that part of us that's speaking the loudest. Now, if you're on a diet or trying to eat more healthily and someone offers you a slice of cake, what do? Part of you tells you to say no because it knows it will be extra calories that you don't need right now. But another part of you says yes because, come on, it's cake. Which part do you listen to? Now, that's a frivolous example of what Paul is talking about here. So what about you? Who do you listen to? Who has your attention? The flesh or the spirit? What has your attention defines your perception. And what defines your perception drives your actions. So let's drop in on a letter that Paul sent to the followers of Jesus in Galatia. Now today that's in central Turkey. This is what Paul says. Walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They're in conflict with each other, so that you're not to do whatever you want. Now, what would life be like if you did whatever you wanted to do, whenever you wanted to do it? It might sound fun, but when you think about it, you can see the danger and the damage it could do to yourself and the people around you. I'm pretty sure my life would be a complete mess if I always acted on the selfish internal impulse that I felt inside. I wouldn't be healthy, my cholesterol would be through the roof, and my bank balance would be completely empty after buying all those things that I thought I wanted but didn't need. And let's be honest, there'll be a load more issues than that. Living by the flesh is not a good way to live. Now, Paul paints a vivid picture for us. The acts of the flesh are obvious. Sexual immorality, impurity and debauchery, idolatry and witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions and envy, drunkenness, orgies and the like. I warn you, as I did before, that those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God. Now, if Paul was writing this letter today, what things might he add to this list? Now, whatever the act is, the source is the same. It's I, me. It's about us and what we want. The source of many of humankind's problems is our self-centeredness. Left to ourselves, we are inherently selfish. Now, come on, you know this. You know that you have to work at being selfless, whereas being selfish comes easily. When we listen to the flesh, we live like this. But when we listen to the Spirit, we have a different option open to us. This is what Paul says. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Now just imagine what it would look like if we all lived like this. Just imagine what it would look like if our lives were categorized by these values. Now, which one do you want your life to be categorized by, the flesh or the Spirit? I'm hoping it's the Spirit. Surely we want to be people who are governed by love and joy rather than jealousy and rage. So why's all this got to do with tech and what we're talking about in this series? Now, which voice is your tech designed to listen to? The flesh or the Spirit? Your tech is built to help you say yes. It says yes to you whenever you ask something of it, unless you're my mum trying to send a photo on our family WhatsApp group, that is. It makes it easier for you to be able to say yes to whatever it is that's in front of you. Just click the link to order it. And with Apple or Google Pay, you don't even have to put your credit card details in. Just click the link to watch the video, view the post, or visit the page. Now, how many times have you clicked a link that you know you probably shouldn't click? The problem is it's so easy. It's easy to say yes when we probably should be saying no. This has been headline news in recent weeks in the UK after an MP apparently clicked on a link he probably knew he shouldn't have done. We say to ourselves, I will buy it, I'll watch it, I'll do it now, and I'll worry about it later. So is your tech leading you? Is it controlling you? Is it defining your perception of how you see the world and how you see yourself? Whatever defines our perception drives our actions. If you're a follower of Jesus, is your life Spirit-led or algorithm-led? Do you say yes to your phone more than you do to your God? I love technology. I think in large part it's a good thing. I think when used correctly, it can be of real benefit to us. How different would life in the middle of lockdown have been if we didn't have technology to help us stay connected and to work remotely? Technology can give us a degree of freedom to help us live in this ever-changing world. But it doesn't take much for that thing that is built to give us freedom to be something that controls and consumes us. But it's not the tech's fault, it's ours. We allow ourselves to be led by it, just like we allow ourselves to be led by our flesh or our sinful nature. We allow ourselves to be influenced more by an algorithm than the Almighty God. We allow ourselves to be controlled by our devices. So what do we do about it? Well, Paul has already told us. To take back control, we have to allow God to take control. Now, I know it sounds like a contradiction. At the heart of the problem and battle with our technology is the same thing that's at the heart of any problem like this: our heart. We give control to our tech because, left to ourselves, we focus on ourselves. Deep down, we want life to be about what we want it to be about. We want to say yes to whatever we want to say yes to. That's what our tech is designed to help us do. And for generations, the human race has done this. We did it long before the iPhone was invented, and we'll continue to do it long after we've moved on to the next thing. The solution is to give control back to God, to be led by Him, and to walk the path that He sets out before us. The solution is to listen to God more than we listen to ourselves. The solution is for us to follow Him instead of ourselves. And why should we do this? Well, again, Paul has already given us a pretty compelling reason. This is what life looks like when we follow ourselves. Now, let me read the words from this letter again to you, but this time they're from a modern day translation of the Bible called the Passion. The behavior of the self-life is obvious. Sexual immorality, lustful thoughts, pornography, chasing after things instead of God, manipulating others, hatred of those who get in your way, senseless arguments, resentment when others are favoured, temper tantrums, angry quarrels, only thinking of yourself, being in love with your own opinions, being envious of the blessing of others, murder, uncontrolled addictions, wild parties, and all other similar behaviour. But the fruit produced by the Holy Spirit within you is divine love, all in its varied expressions. Joy that overflows, peace that subdues, patience that endures, kindness in action, a life full of virtue, faith that prevails, gentleness of heart, and strength of spirit. Now, the reason why Paul is so passionate about us living by the Spirit and not the flesh, the reason why we should allow our lives to be governed by God and not an algorithm, is because the life that God has for us is far better. It's far more rewarding and it's far more fulfilling than the one our flesh or our phones have for us. The life that God has for us is life in all its fullness. It's abundant life. It's a life that can be discovered through choosing to give God our attention, to allow Him to define our perception and to drive our actions. It's the life we were created for. Now let me be really clear. Your phone isn't the problem, you are. You've already seen what happens when you listen to yourself and when you live for yourself. So try a different way. Put God at the centre. Allow Him to be the driving force behind what you do. Allow Him to be the filter through which you see yourself and the world around you. Give Him your attention and allow your actions to flow from there. Now, if you're not sure where to start or what to do, head over to fbcnext.com/tech for some tips on how to take back control from your tech.